Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to this week's Monday Motivation, the motivational Facebook Live or recording if you're watching on the replay, which hopes to motivate your morning, your Monday, even your week. And this morning's motivation is all about motivation when you want to be highly effective. So if you, like many others who watch these live, want to hop on and say good morning, add your comments, your thoughts, your feedback live as we're going through, then by all means just use the chat box just below, type in your comments there, and I will read them out when and if I can, and if not, I always respond to them afterwards. If you're one of my lurkers who like to watch this live but like to keep a little bit quiet and just take in the lesson, that's fine too. And if you are watching this on the replay, then thank you so much for coming back and choosing to watch this. I know that Monday is often deemed as a very busy day, a day where everybody wants to get their stuff done. And you know what? It's the whole reason why I make these motivations. So the first thing is, even if you don't know who of your Facebook friends are awake or busy or free right now, I'd love you to share this on your timeline. Do it right now. You never know who's sitting there twiddling their thumbs, you know, having something rolling around their head, trying to find out what they should do. And this video might just be the thing that they need to be able to kickstart them and get them going. So, with a sip of water, I shall begin. All other brands of water are available, of course. Okay, so today's motivation is based on a couple of things. The first thing is a question, if I can get my words out, maybe I need more water. A question that I ask myself and actually that of my clients quite a lot on a regular basis. And it is the question of, what will I do differently next time? This is such a useful question. You know, when I was learning my neuro-linguistic programming, my teacher, mentor, used to talk about this question a lot as being a learning question. It's a question that gives you lots of insights, and in a strange way, it gives you insights into things that you might not have thought about before. And this is part of the magic that lies within this question. So, the reason why I'm talking about this and motivation is because we try so hard to get stuff right, to get stuff done, to be successful in the thing that we're doing, to be highly effective. And good morning, Alan. Hi, thanks for popping your comment in the bottom there. Sorry, it popped up and I didn't go back to it. It's how we strive to get stuff done, to be successful, to be effective, to make a difference. And quite often we do this more than we think. And that moment moves on. We achieve the thing and that moment glides past and then we're on to the next thing. And this question really mines the gold in the good, the effective, the stuff that worked, the stuff that didn't, and everything else in between. So this is a way that we can go through, get stuff done, and not miss the lessons, okay? So being highly effective, whether it is in your personal life or professional life, actually, there are things that we skip over. Let me give you a small example. So last week, in a group that I have right here on Facebook, it's all about discovering your video visibility, how to get out there more on video. And every day there's a prompt. They get a little prompt and then they go and do a video in the group, and many go on to do videos on their Facebook pages, some of them outside on Instagram, on YouTube, even on LinkedIn. And one of the things as we go through the weeks are, sometimes I suspect the people will do a video, they'll put it out there, and then the next step is, oh, thank goodness, you know, I've done it. What's the next thing to do? And, you know, I heard somebody speak on Thursday who said something really pivotal, and I'm going to actually cover some great tips to help with this process, if you like, timings and things like that. But one of the things that it made me realise is how we can miss the lessons. And we sometimes think, you know, if we debrief something, for example, and something goes wrong, it's a great time to mind the lessons, when in fact what actually happens is we do something, it goes well, we don't debrief, so we don't mind the goal for the gold in it for next time, or something doesn't really quite work out and we just want to forget about it. That's normally what happens. That was awful, just want to forget about it. Let's say, for example, you're going through a process and it's not your process. Maybe you're attempting to change something. Maybe you're attempting to get something done. Maybe you're attempting to get an organisation or a company or even some other structure to see things from your point of view. Anytime you have a meeting with them or a phone call with them, it's likely that you would prepare for that meeting or phone call, and then once that's over and done with, then what happens? You might rant to a friend or a colleague. You might say, oh, it was so disappointing, they could have done this, they should have done that. But most often, that's it. We don't look at what we did, what was effective, what didn't work, what did work, or what we would do differently next time. Because many of us will say, well, the moment's passed. It's past now, so there's no point me going over it. When in fact, there absolutely is. So I am just looking down because some of the notes, some of the comments are showing here. I'm looking down at my notes as well. Some of the comments are showing here, and I don't want to miss any comments. So I'm just going to do this right now and make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Okay. Brilliant. Just got a thumbs up on this. So that means that everything is working. So, where do we start? Well, the first thing, now you know why you might want to do this, why you might want to do a self-assessment, if you like. The next thing you might want to look at is like, well, what exactly do I need to do? So one of the most effective things are to find questions to ask yourself, like a self-assessment, if you like. And there's a really good reason for this. Quite often, when we go through whatever we're going through in life, we can be either driven very strongly by ourselves, our self-drive, our self-motivation. Maybe there's somebody that we're looking after, we're trying to protect them, or something that we're looking after, we're trying to protect. Maybe it's our business, maybe it's our children, maybe it's maybe it's a department or something like that. So our drive is to help other people or another person. Sometimes our drive is initially to help ourselves. It might be to make our lives easier. It might be to shortcut something. It might be to make something more effective. And sometimes you're somewhere in between. Now, if you are doing a regular kind of self-assessment, if you like, and you're asking this question, what will I do differently next time? The onus then comes back to you. It means that when somebody comes back and says, oh no, that was all wrong, you should have done it like this, you can stand in firm ground and say, absolutely not. Because when I reviewed this, this is what I thought. Or when I was thinking of coming to this decision or doing or saying this thing, this is exactly what came up for me. So you can stand really firm, really strong in what you're doing. Okay, so that's the first thing. So often, in order to help others, we need to help ourselves first. Like the very well used in personal development anyway, the well used analogy of the oxygen mask. We need to put our oxygen mask on first before we help others. And this is a really great way of doing it. So there are a couple of things, because you might think, well, how do I do that? What questions do I ask? Well, the best and easiest question is this: what will I do differently next time? And if you saw my post of yesterday, the post before this, you'll see where I'd written it down on a piece of paper. That was actually me doodling at the top of a piece of paper, because this is what I actually did last week. So last week I did 2 speaking events for 2 different companies. One was a travel company who brought in a lot of their members so that they could learn how to have what I trademark as conversations. So these are when they're in a meeting, maybe they're giving a presentation, maybe they're on the telephone, and they need to have conversations that sell a service, very specifically sell a service. Sometimes you might want to sell a message. So if you're fighting for something on behalf of another person or other people, you'll want that message to matter. You'll want to be taken seriously. You'll want to be heard. So if you are looking to have those sorts of persuasive conversations, then this principle will work just as well. So then one of the other things that happened last week was that I spoke on a Thursday. So let me break this down into the what will I do differently next time and how it can make a difference for you, rather than just listening to this on a Facebook Live, maybe sharing it with a friend and thinking, yeah, that's quite useful. I want it to make a lasting difference for you. So on Tuesday, what we did when we had these conversations, because we were all together in a room, we were able to practice what those conversations could sound like moving forward, so that, you know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, role play, I don't do role play. And for me, it's not about the role play. It's about practicing what you want to say in a safe environment, so that when you actually go to do it in person, that your body goes and your brain goes, you know what, I've done this 1,000 times before, I'm good. Now, even though that's one success strategy and one successful step, then what you could do after you've had the actual conversation, whether it's the practice or the real thing, is to ask yourself the question, like, what would I do differently next time? So anything that you deemed went right, ask yourself that question, make it into a checklist or a process for next time. Anything you deemed didn't go so well, ask yourself the same question. Make it into a, what would I do differently next time in this bit? And add that to your process, so that you've got some steps that you can follow that you know works for you to be able to do the thing that you want to do. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, will you give me a thumbs up or a love heart as well? And also, Facebook has been very strange since its outage yesterday. Are we allowed to say that? Will I find that my Facebook Live doesn't go live after this for saying that? But it happened. Very interesting few moments watching the world panic as they thought, no Facebook or Instagram, or I can't use WhatsApp, what's going on? So Thursday, I did these 2 talks last week, and Thursday was slightly different in that I was talking about or speaking about my main body of work, the Visibility Vibe System. There's 5 steps to the Visibility Vibe System, and you're going to be hearing a lot about those steps in the next coming weeks. So stay tuned to this channel and like this channel and get notified for any time I go live if you want to hear more about that. So when I went to this talk, I gave 2 talks at this conference, and then I listened to somebody who was keynote speaking, who I've posted about again further down on this timeline here. So go and check out who that was and why I think that they're really great at what they do. And in their talk, they covered the job that they did and what they always, or how they used to do what they called a hot debrief. A hot debrief. Alan's saying that makes sense, great. So in the hot debrief, and Alan will probably resonate with this languaging of the hot debrief, because I know that in his background, he had some background in kind of military type base as well, as did this speaker. So one of the things that they did as they were speaking, they were talking about a very hostile environment, actually going to save a hostage when they're in the forces. And it was interesting to me, some of the things that they said as they went through their talk, that I thought, you know what, when we are being highly effective, when we're asking this what would we do differently next time question, this is a form of debrief. But as I listened to him talking and speaking about these different things, I realised that I had my own version of what would I do differently next time as a result of hearing him speak. And here are just a couple of the nuggets that I want to share with you that I think will help to highly motivate you to be even more highly effective in the things you do. Some of these might seem obvious and some of these might not seem obvious. If you think, oh, well, that's obvious, Jenny, look at how you can personally build on it to make it more effective for you. If you're like, oh, no, I've never thought of doing that before, then look at a way that you can put that in place and do it as quickly as you possibly can. So the first thing that they spoke about is they said, when they go into doing something like that, everybody needs to understand what's happening. And it's quite interesting that many of my solo business owners, and especially a lot of my executives, so they're employed by a big company, maybe they're the CEO, maybe they're the managing director, maybe they're the chief financial officer or the chief operating officer. Because they are at the top of where they need to be, they are often looked at to lead a team. Well, when you're leading a team, it's more obvious. It's more obvious that you want to understand that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. But when it's you as the leader of the team, have you remembered to include yourself? Are you crystal clear on what you're doing? You know, one of the conversations that comes up a lot when I'm privately coaching people is that I'll ask them what they want to achieve. And they'll kind of talk it out, which is fine, because for many of them, they work with me in a sounding board, capacity. They'll talk it out. So they'll, rather than say, this is what I want to achieve, they'll say, well, I'm looking to do this and do this because this is happening. I'm also quite keen for this to happen. I'm a passionate and firm believer in this, this and this. And that isn't focused. I found myself doing this recently. You know, there's one goal that I need to achieve and I'm working on very methodically and going through the step-by-step process. And then I found myself coming to start publishing some information, and I'd already kind of spread myself thinly and scattered it. Oh, well, I do want to do this, this and this, but I also want to do that, that and that. So sometimes it needs to be a case of what is your refocus? What are you going to focus on? So that was a really great lesson. One way to pull in your focus is to understand, like, what is that single mission? And again, speaking in their language, not necessarily mine. What's your single focus? What's the point that you're getting to? Don't worry about the steps along the way. Don't think about, well, how it will change people's lives afterwards, although that's an important driver. But what is your single focus? What is your mission? What are you driven to do? And stay with that, move towards that, and you'll start to see that you get closer and closer. This will be just one way in which you will see how highly effective what you're doing is doing. Now, the insight I got from this speaker about a hot debrief and the what will I do differently next time, and I remember this from many years ago when I started my business, true story, in 2010, I used to train and coach people and businesses on one side of the business, and I made handmade cakes and handmade chocolates on the other hand. Okay, so at the start of my business, for the first probably 18 months or so, coming up to 2 years, I did both of these different things. In fact, it was like 4 different things: cakes and chocolates, training and coaching, you know. And so I did all of these things at the same time. And I remember I went to a craft fair very close to Christmas, and I decided, well, yes, I will sell the cakes and the chocolates. I have samples, you know, it's coming up to Christmas. People could buy them and give them as Christmas gifts, have them on their Christmas table. They were very exquisite handmade chocolates, very high-end handmade chocolates. And people were coming up to the stand. Some of them were looking at the chocolates. Some of them were tasting them, ordering them and things like that. I also had on the stand ways that you could work with me as a coach, you know, as a life coach, how you could, work through things privately, professionally, or anywhere in between. And I realised after I made lots and lots of cakes, and I had, although I made a lot of cakes and sold a fair few cakes, I had a lot of cakes made left. And I did this what will I do differently exercise after this, because I realised that while I sold a lot of cakes, I realised that there were things that I was starting to kind of almost complain about in my head. Well, you know, I don't know how well this was advertised. I don't know how many people walked in front of my stand. People were taking shortcuts somewhere else, and perhaps if I'd done this and done that. So things came out like, what would I do differently next time? I would make sure that I had somebody helping me, that I could be more mobile, for example, and get in front of people. But you know what? I finished the day, I packed up, I went into a local party shop actually and asked would they want to sell these cakes from there? Are they allowed to? Which they weren't. But they said they would help me out and point people in my direction in the next sort of 24, 48 hours. I actually posted to my friends on Facebook and said, I've got loads of cakes here. You know, they're freshly made and you can get 3 for the price of 1. You just need to come and get them. For those of you that live locally to me. And people came along. I put a load in my freezer. I gave them away. You know, I did what I could. And that evening, a bit later on that evening, I had the idea, well, what would I do differently next time? And I wrote everything down, whether it worked out well, like it was good, bad or ugly. Excuse me. Yawning in the midst of my own Facebook Live. I have been up for like nearly 2 hours, very early today. So here was the thing that I realised. What came out of those answers, what would I do differently next time, became a checklist for whether, if I did that sort of thing again, what would I check out for before, during and afterwards. And I remember the next day I continued the exercise. Now what I learned about the hot debrief is, in the military, as soon as the thing is done, like literally the moment it's finished, they do the debrief straight away. And there's absolute gold in this when you think about being highly effective. There's absolute gold in this. And here's why, but let me take a sip of water. The reason why there's so much gold in that by doing it immediately straight away is, even when you leave it a few hours or a day, there are elements of things that can be missed. It could be emotionally how you felt about something. It could be the logistics of why or how something happened. But there are things that can be missed. So one of the things I realised, and it was so interesting because I did both of these talks and I had a bit of time in between. Had I have known then what I know now, after the talk, after I'd spoken to everybody, I would have insisted on having 15 minutes either to myself or with the person who was helping me, and debriefed it straight away, like just giving myself 20 minutes just to sit down and debrief that straight away. That could actually have informed the afternoon session, of which I could have done exactly the same thing. It would have meant that by the time I'd left the venue, that I would have already debriefed and looked at what I would do differently next time. Here's the beauty of that. It means that not only now have I just got a checklist of things that I might or might not do, I've actually got a best practice process that not only I can use for future events that are similar like that, but for me, as somebody that goes out and trains this stuff, it makes it even more beneficial for the people that I'm sharing it with, whether it's you here on this Facebook page, whether it's in the Visibility Vibes Tribe Facebook group, whether it's in my Be Seen Academy Inner Circle, and soon to be the Be Seen Corporate Academy too. You know, there's so much gold that can be mined from that. In fact, straight after this, I will be putting out another video for another audience that I have. And in that video, I will do a shortened version of this. If I give myself a couple of minutes to ask, what would I do differently next time? They will really reap the benefits of making this more highly effective for them. And I hope, will reap the benefits and the insights of making it more highly effective for other people. So all of that said, I invite you to think of something that you are working on currently, wanting to do. Maybe it's the first time for doing something and you want to be highly motivated. Now, you don't have to share it on here, but what I would love you to do is to go into the Visibility Vibes Tribe Facebook group and share what is motivating you this Monday. Now, I know that you might have a checklist of 4 or 5 things. I urge you, even if you've got 4 or 5 things on your checklist, just to pick one of them, just one, pop it in the group and let us know why that's important to you. I have 2 or 3 things that I want to get done this week. It's a shorter week with Easter coming up, but still, I will, if I was doing the exercise, and I may well play along actually, is I'm going to pick one of those things and I'm going to share why I'm motivated to do it and how I want to do it more effectively. So I'd love you to play that game too. And for those of you who are watching this and are currently Visibility Vibers, you know, I'd love to hear what you're up to. Literally, it doesn't have to be War and Peace, just one sentence about what you're motivated to do this week. It could be that you're motivated to take time off so that you can relax and recharge and rethink, because that is actually something you can do too. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I would love you to put your comments below, because actually your comments and your feedback help me, and this is something I learned from a What Would I Do Differently Next Time. The comments and feedback that you give help me to actually, you know, develop further stuff, further videos, further content, further writings, further posts that can help you do what you actually need to do, rather than me being hypothetical. And many of you find that, you know, of most interest and most value to you. So thank you so much for watching. Remember this learning question, what would I do differently next time? And apply it to everything that you do. And you'll find that your effectivity, if you like, your effectiveness will really grow quickly. It gets you out of overwhelm because you've now got a very clear step of how you prefer to do things and what works well for you. And it means that you can move further to the next one. So for example, if you've been working with a supplier as a business owner, which a lot of people have this, you work with a supplier, you put all of your faith and trust in them, you even pay them your money, and then they don't do the thing that you want them to do. What would I do differently next time stops you from beating yourself up, and it also allows you to look out for maybe like alarm bells or something that's got in the way. Morning, Faye. So thank you so much. Oh, Sarah, so good to see you on here. I know that you're a ninja at this as well. So if, you know, for all of you watching, whether it's live or on the replay, first thing is, could you share this? Could you share this on your timeline and say, you know, give people a reason why. Say, Jenny does these every Monday and hopes that this motivates your Monday, your morning or your week. Or just say, if you need some motivation this Monday, check this out. You never know what people are going through silently. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sharing. And I look forward to any comments that you leave either below this video, whether on the replay or live, and any insights that you share in the group. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you all, and bye for now.